Customer asked me to count out a bag of live crickets in front of her, loses out on bonus crickets. I, 32F. Work part-time at a pet store to supplement my income as my salary of a full-time teacher doesn't always pay the bills, plus I have a few pets and 20% off of in-store purchases is rather helpful. Anyway, one of the things we supply are live and frozen feeder animals for things like reptiles, certain aquatic creatures, and invertebrates. These include things like mice, rats, dubia roaches, bloodworms, mealworms, waxworms, superworms, and crickets. The mice and rats are either frozen or live, but either way they're easy to count and box up for the customer. Dubia roaches, mealworms, waxworms, and superworms are prepackaged and price-marked, but the crickets are not. Crickets are kept in these large containers with mesh top, egg cartons for the crickets to climb and hide in, cricket food, and hydration. This means when customers ask for crickets, which we usually sell by the dozen, we have to count and retrieve them manually while putting them in a plastic bag we then fill with air and tie off to go with the customer. Our method for transferring the crickets is to lightly tap the egg cartons over a funnel-like object that doesn't have a hole at the bottom. We tap the crickets in, wrap the plastic bag around the mouth of the funnel, then tip it and lightly tap the crickets into the bag. Some crickets jump in out of order or cling to others, so often customers are given bonus crickets, which we're okay with. It's better than shorting them. So, customers are always given the right amount or often more than what they asked for without an increase in price. Most people get this. The customer in this story did not. A woman comes in and she asked for 4 dozen crickets. 48 crickets total. I went to the back, tapped the crickets from the cartons into the funnel and then counted them into the bag. As per usual, the occasional extra cricket tumbled or hopped in, probably putting the total to a bit over 50 by the time I was done. I bagged them, tied the bag, then took them to the counter. Now, I don't know if this woman was having a bad day or she had been stiffed by another store in the past, but she demanded that we count out the crickets in front of her before she pay for them. I explained that it was likely that she got more than what she asked for, and counting out 48 crickets individually would take a little while. She insisted. She wanted to be sure we weren't ripping her off. So, I got one of those small plastic critter keepers and a pair of tongs. I opened the bag, making it deflate and slightly more painful to work with, and inserted the tongs delicately so not to crush the crickets. I grabbed each one with the tongs and started counting slowly so not to crush the crickets with the tongs or lose my place while counting, something I do struggle with, and dropped each individually counted cricket into the critter keeper. So after about 5 to 10 minutes at the counter meticulously counting crickets with tongs, and maybe deliberately taking a little bit longer than I had to out of spite, a line was building up behind the woman and I was getting close to the end of my count. Eventually I hit the grand total of what she paid for, 48 crickets. And wouldn't you believe it? There were 10 left over in the bag. Almost a whole extra free dozen she would have gotten had she not asked me to count. I said, "Oh, would you look at that? My mistake. You were right. I did miscount. I'll put these other ones back and ring you up for the 48. I'll be right back." And before she could protest, I wandered off to dump the last 10 crickets back into the cricket container. When I came back to check her out, she was silent, not looking at me, did her best to ignore the irritated looks of the customers lining up behind her while I poured her 48 crickets back into a plastic bag. She paid, then slunk off sheepishly out the door without a thank you or a glance back. I then got through the rest of the line quickly and apologized to the customers in line for the wait. I sent them home with some free samples, thanked them for their patience, then continued along with my shift. She never complained. And she did return to the location several times after. She never asked anyone to count crickets again. And crickets only cost pennies each. At least they did when I used to buy them for my lizards. Even if you accidentally shorted her, it would probably be by less change than she'd find on the ground on the way back to her car. People are dumb. No response from the other waiting customers? Crickets? You're going to lose money in the cricket game anyway. Half of the crickets die before my daughter can feed them to her leopard gecko. In 4 years we've never bought the correct amount to get the gecko fed and have none die. I've got a friend who keeps frogs. Her favorite store basically dumps a lot of crickets into a bag and calls it a few dozen. The result is you pay for 50 crickets or whatever. You're getting 100 on a bad day. Guess where she buys most of her other supplies? Because she's there anyway every week and she likes them. I buy crickets and roaches often. If a pet store meticulously counts each cricket to the exact amount I asked for, I don't go back for a long time. I take my business elsewhere to an easygoing place, where I buy all my other peripherals too. I don't understand people like this. I like precision. Situations like this are exempt from that preference because it doesn't add anything constructive. I swear I've read this before. It makes me pretty sad to know that your full-time job as a teacher doesn't pay enough to support you. I hated doing this when I was working at a pet store. It was terrible. I can't imagine using a tong. In the 4 years of doing this, I never had a customer make me count. You are a saint. And before she could protest, I wandered off to dump the last 10 crickets back into the cricket container. When I came back to check her out, she was silent, not looking at me. So, crickets? Me at pet stores. Hi, I'd like a dozen crickets. Them. Sure thing. Here's a dozen crickets. They proceed to hand me roughly 75 crickets. Doesn't this Karen listen to T-Swizzle? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Shout out to Pet Care store employees, y'all rock. Where I am, the advertised cost is about 6 cents each. We buy them from bait shops to fish with. They are always measured by volume and always at least 50% over. More if they are running small. I'm curious as to what pets eat frozen rats, mice. Do they swallow them whole or nibble the rodents? I assume they need to be defrosted first. I had that happen a few times when I worked at the store where pets are family. Every time I made a show of taking all their extra away. Every time that upset them. I had a friend when I was little who had snakes. He fed them live mice now and then. I still remember the look on that mouse face when it was put into the snake pit. Is that the word? Nothing was moving. Yet the mouse knew something was wrong. It's weird how that works. Wow. It's kind of funny seeing a name I think I recognize out in the wild. I follow you on Patreon. Love your art. A man walks into a pet store and asks for a dozen bees. The clerk carefully counts 13 bees out onto the counter. That's one too many, says the customer. The clerk replies, it's a freebie. Quote, reminds me of the samosa story someone posted here a little while ago. https www.reddit.com/r/maliciouscompliance/comments/culerglue/ you want the exact amount, you get the exact amount /
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.